Once again, thanks for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak Live on Citizen TV on this 22nd day of October 2021, 2 days after that over 1 year curfew was lifted. And if you turn to page 7 of the Daily Nation, you'll see the latest news in regards to that. Relief as hotel and bar working hours extended. You have Health CS there, Mutai Kagwe, stating that bars operating to 11 p.m. Government targets to vaccinate more than 10 million Kenyans against COVID by the end of the year. Remember, bars and restaurants were previously closing at 7 p.m. And all this had a lot of implications for other sectors as well. And that's why I have my guest here in studio to talk a little bit about what the last year and a couple of months has been for them in their respective sectors, but also what they see as full recovery moving forward with the lifting of the curfew. Joining me in studio, let me start from my left here. We have Abdulaziz Mohammed, who's the chair of Mtandao Drivers Association, taxi hailing companies. He'll be able to give us some insight into that. Thanks for your time this morning. And on my right, we've got Mario Nobura, who's an events consultant and a strategist. We'll talk a bit about that, together with Michael Kirago, who is the national chair of the Pubs, Entertainment and Restaurants Association of Kenya. To both of you, welcome as well. And joining us from Mombasa County, we've got Dr. Davji Atela, who's the Secretary General, KMPDU, and I'll be bringing him on shortly. But Mario, I want to start with you immediately. Curfew, curfew, curfew. What did that mean for events overall? Paint for us a brief picture of what the last year and a half has been for you in that space.
To be blunt, it's been really difficult because we've been used to having events running. If it's a corporate event, you're starting a launch at about maybe 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and it can go on until midnight, 1. And then you're told curfew is at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. I mean, what time do you do your lunch? If it's a cocktail, then it becomes what? An afternoon session. So it was really hard. I remember the end of the year in December, those of us who do things like gift hampers and Christmas parties, I mean, you just could not operate at night. Everything changed. So it was hard to adapt. What was worst about the restrictions? Was it the curfew? Was it the social distancing? What hit you the hardest? The numbers. The numbers. The numbers. The numbers, because... And that's still a problem today, even as you tell us that. Yes, it's still a problem. At first we had 30 people for weddings, and to make matters worse, there was nothing about corporate events. So some venues, I remember like KICC, we couldn't do anything. There was nothing going on, and then it went to 50. And at the point at which the curfew happened, I remember the first one happened on the 13th of March. People had weddings of 400 people, 600 people. 1,000. 1,000, and then it all comes down. So that was dreadful. Okay, Michael is really smiling as you speak, and Abdulaziz, I'm coming to you shortly. Michael, your organization, Pubs, Entertainment and Restaurants Association of Kenya, together with others, had a press briefing earlier this week. Yes. And it sounded like a serious prayer: lift that curfew. What has this space been like? Why did you feel the need to appeal to the president? I think it was on Tuesday. Yes, I think we just had to hammer down the fact that we had rumors that by next month there would be a full opening, but we just wanted this for Mashujaa Day. Let's just have our day. Let's move forward. Let's regroup. And it's been 18 months of suffering, loss of livelihoods, loss of lives, actually. And we just wanted a fresh start. And we saw this is where we would start. We'd have at least a couple of months until December, the Christmas period. We could be able maybe to recoup. Some people be able to make something small. And let's just see where the future holds. Tell me about the numbers you gave in that press briefing. You stated that more than 15,000 bars and restaurants have been shut, 90,000 jobless workers. Actually, it wasn't even 90,000. We had about 250,000 people home, because what you have to remember is that bars actually opened in November. We had some opening of restaurants, but the pure bars, which people used to start at 5 to 11, those were closed completely for the best part of 8 months. Are you saying 5 p.m. or 5 a.m.? No, 5 p.m. Okay, we have different licensing. Okay. Yeah, so the bars that the pure bar normally would have opened at 5 p.m. before COVID and shut at 11. So those people were home completely. There was no job, no nothing. Think about roughly about 95,000 people home one day with nothing.
with families. Then you think about the value chain going back down there, the people who are taking alcohol to them, the guys, the hawkers who walk around into those bars. It was just crazy.
Tell me about restaurants briefly. What any better for them?
There was a slight reprieve when if you remember the old 2 sausages and a beer thing. So there was just a slight reprieve, but you have to remember they're also working under very short hours. So something would have been working with people who would have been having 2 shifts. Now you have 1 shift. So basically half your staff is at home or on half pay at best. The people who had the best time of the 18 months were people who are on half pay. So just think about that.
That was the best case scenario.
Yes.
Abdulaziz, as you listen to all this, I'll tell you the truth. Over the last year and a half, I've been in Ubers numerous times, and I always hear the drivers lamenting the impact of the curfew. How bad was the curfew? How did it impact the taxi hailing space generally?
Curfew. I think that has been the worst time, the worst 19 months in this business. And you know, most of us, when you hear of night activities, you know what comes into mind is the usiku sako, comprising of the sherehe people and those. But you know, the majority of the usiku sako are Kenyans trying to work hard to earn a good living. So if you can hear the event planners complaining, the bars and the restaurants complaining, and these are the people who we depend on in terms of transportation. There are no people moving from one event to the other. So our business has been just dead, completely dead.
How have your members been surviving? What are they telling you they are doing to try and stay afloat in those 19 months?
I think most of them, what happened is because of few working hours, and you know, our members, the drivers who sometimes double up as the owners, they need to service loans to be in business. Just to stay in business itself, they need to service loans. So with few working hours, the ones who used to work during the night and the ones who are still working during the day had to come to that time. So the competition was stiffer. Remember, the Ministry of Health was strongly encouraging Kenyans to stay at home and minimize movement. So that itself is self-explanatory. Cars have been auctioned. As we sit here, over 1,500 cars have been auctioned because they could not remit their monthly loan obligations. So basically, the economy, there was no 24-hour economy.
At all during that?
At all.
Marion, how do you think, now that you can look back on when there was a curfew, I mean, it's just been just 2 days, how do you think it fundamentally has changed your sector?
Well, for starters, let me start. In events, there are different professions. For example, event planners, quite a number of them who are purely planning where they don't have equipment or anything, have managed to pivot and do other things. So some people have gone into different spaces completely, talk about data science, talk about training, talk about marketing and all. But the people who have been in event rentals, like furniture, talk about your seats, your chairs, your tents, they were the ones who were hit the worst. So what happens is people have become innovative. What we used to call small events, like birthdays and baby showers and bridal showers, have become prime. Okay, so now...
Because they were the only ones you could do?
Yes, because it's small numbers and all. Because remember, the person, that decorator or that event rental company has tons of seats in the store.
Wow.
Tents.
Doing nothing.
Doing nothing. What do you do? People who do sound, you have speakers, people invested for concerts and all that stuff. What are your speakers doing? So you get, thank God for live streaming, so you do, you know, one mic, one speaker, 2 speakers, but what can that really do? So we found people going into the smaller events, appreciating them a little bit more. We found people in deco going into interior design.
Wow.
Yes, we have a lot of people who survived by going into farming, like totally different things. But I can say that right now, things seem to be coming back because we have two main, shall I say, associations or WhatsApp groups. So there's the Events Organizers Association of Kenya, and then there's the Wedding Industry Network, of which I am both. For a period of 6-8 months, there was nothing. No one was asking for anything.
Nothing in those groups?
We were just crying. Oh, someone is contemplating suicide. Someone is being auctioned. No. Someone is doing this. There was nothing. We were all home. Right? So any small thing you could do, there was nothing like, what are you interested in? No. Like, what do you need to do now to put food on the table? You know, people closed down their stores, moved their items back to their houses. So it was really, really tough. So
you've hinted at things, the situation beginning to look a bit better. How so? Correct. What are you seeing? Are the WhatsApp groups now active?
Compared to the last 18 months, absolutely. I mean, it's actually exciting to see the groups very active, where people are saying who has this kind of tent, who has this kind of chair, who has this, who has that, and there's a lot of communication happening. Weddings, I think weddings, in as much as events have reduced, weddings somehow have continued, because couples were like, you know, COVID or no COVID, we must get married. So that has continued to increase, and the numbers, people are doing about, 100 at the moment. So it's good. It's getting, we're not yet there, but it's getting better. Okay, and I'd like to hear from you on what there will look like eventually. Okay. But Michael, what have the last 2 days now looked? Day and some hours? What are they looking like now? What feedback are you getting from your members?
Surprisingly, the first day, obviously, the happiness of people, the people running away all around, but I think the mentality will take quite a while to change. There's a funny WhatsApp that's been going round of someone yawning at 10:01. Yes. So I think it will take, the mentality will change. I feel like even yesterday evening, it was very quiet by around 11. Quiet. Generally people went home early because of habit. That mindset is already in people. They're drinking earlier, which is actually not good for us as a nation. First of all, let's start there. And it's although not all doctors will agree with you on that. Yes, but I'm very hopeful. Let's just say that. Of all the things that have happened, there's nothing we can do but hope. What are you doing to insist to your members that they must follow the protocols? Because there's that concern, and that's why we need to really get Dr. Davji Atela online. Other countries have opened up, and within months they locked down again. Does that concern you? It does, but one thing you have to remember is that we were actually the first industry to come up and follow protocols. Mm-hmm. In fact, when they kept opening and closing, our biggest gripe was, but we are doing everything you've asked us to do. Why do you keep closing us down? Because we were the first people to put the stickers on the floor, space the chairs. We had the city council. We had a lot of people going around doing things, checking with what we are doing, because we are the easiest target for looking for something small. So we were actually, if there is someone who's been following, we have been, okay, I'll say the majority. You can't. Yeah, I was going to say you there. Yes, we've had 1 or 2 bad apples, but the majority of the industry have been following the protocols. So I'm not too worried about that, because it's something now that has also been ingrained in people. You'd find people are sitting outside or spaced. It's now, you'd find everywhere there's a sanitizer. Before COVID, no one even knew what sanitizer was. It was something some women carried in their purses, if we were being honest. But now everyone, you find everyone just getting some sanitizer, and it's now become the norm. So, okay, that's so this is something, protocols is something I'm not worried about. We are keeping on pushing the protocol thing so that hopefully we are not shut down again. But we're also coming up with our own data, so that by the time we get to a point where, if God help us, they try to shut us down again, we have an actual, we can prove to them that, look at it, we've been following this, we are doing this. We are not the super spreaders. We are not the super spreaders. And then I'll come to you about that. But yes. Abdulaziz, let me know this then. What are the patterns for your business? What was prime time like sort of before the pandemic? Did the prime time now change with the curfew? And how do you see that changing moving forward?
Okay, for the taxi industry, prime time, it was throughout the day. There was specific times for, the people used to go to work initially, and most of the times the blue chip companies used to outsource the transport to all the taxis. But now, since the COVID started hitting us, we were told if you can work from home, you stay at home. If you can minimize movement, try to minimize movement as much as possible. So that has hit us. And there was totally a whole night shift team that worked together with the bars and the restaurant and the event planning team.
The ones you're calling part of
the Usiku Sako Society. You could take one client going to different events.
So that was a sort of prime time.
Yes. So we had prime time during the day, some part of the day, and at night. In fact, some drivers preferred night shift because they could do more trips.
No traffic?
No traffic, no extortions. During weekends, you would even do as much as even 20 to 25 trips.
What are these extortions that who are these extorting you?
You know, during the day, there's the kanjo, the police are all over. You know, we get extorted all the time for not, for just being some wrong place at the wrong time.
Is it extortion or is it breaking the rules?
No. As in sometimes what happens is you might be dropping off somebody at the right place, but a police officer comes and just checks the tire and says, this is about to tear. You need to buy a new tire, so you need, such kind of things.
Okay. Anyway, they preferred that, evening because there were fewer.
Evening was the best.
No city council, etc.
Yes.
How will that now change? And maybe I should begin by asking, what has changed since Wednesday? I've seen 1 or 2 companies giving offers.
Yeah.
What's changing?
Okay, it's not like nothing. It's not like much has changed because from 9 to 11, there's no much difference. But we just hope and pray we get vaccinated, and so that the economy can completely open up. But we're just working through it. We're just trying to adjust and see how we can just take advantage of that.
So what you're hoping for is actually a return to the way things were.
Yes.
That for you is what will make
yes. And we have
11 is still
11 still is just there's no much difference.
Okay.
Yeah. As much as we have our own responsibilities to observe the COVID protocols, and also we also urge the government to increase the vaccination drive, to do awareness, civic education, because some people do not even believe in the vaccine. Yeah, so, and also provide the vaccines so that we can have full-time recovery of the economy. So that we can have sherehe and the events throughout until Che.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think on that note, we can take our first break. When we come back, let me tell you who I'll be talking to. We'll continue engaging with my guests. I want to talk a bit about what are the lessons learned from this last, someone said about 19 months or so. In addition, vaccination. And for that conversation, we'll be joined after the break by Dr. Davji Atela, SecGen, KMPDU, Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union. And also concerns, could we see some of those restrictions coming back? One of my guests said, God forbid. But we've seen it in other countries. And is there a possibility we could be back here a few months from now having a different conversation? We hope not, but it's a conversation we need to have anyway. 22422 is the SMS line, hashtag Daybreak. How did the curfew affect you? Let us know, and we'll continue with that conversation on the other side. You're watching Daybreak. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. This morning we're asking you, how did the curfew affect you? 22422 is the SMS line, hashtag Daybreak. My goodness, the tweets are too many to all read, or to read all of them rather. But let me mention 1 or 2. Engineer Lazaro Kanyambok, thanks for tuning in faithfully, by the way. You say, lifting of the night curfew is a good move when it comes to reviving the economy. Government should now change tack and concentrate on vaccination, not punitive measures that only benefits the police. Well, I think the police would have a different response to that. What else are you saying this morning? Nelson Indeti, you say most businesses had to close down due to the inadequate time they had to run their businesses, especially in the hospitality department. Mark Orango Rogers, you say it really affected my traveling because I used to travel conveniently at night. And if there's one more, let me see here. Mkamba, Kenya, you said the economy has taken a serious beating, making businesses suffer. Pesa mfukoni zilipungua. Thank you. I'll keep reading some of those other messages as we continue. My guest still here with me in studio, but now joining us from Mombasa is Dr. Davji Atela, Sec Gen, KMPDU. Daktari, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you, Maura.
Great, we can hear you loud and clear. Now, there are Kenyans who may have forgotten the original purpose of the curfew. If you don't mind me asking an old question, please remind them, what was the curfew all about? What was the envisioning when the curfew was first put in place in terms of taming COVID-19?
You see, the aim of the curfew was to curb the spread of the virus. And basically, it was one of the measures that the government, one of the containment measures that the government had put in place to ensure that the spread or the transmission of the virus was reduced. And I will tell you, Mahura, classically, the researchers are categorizing this corona pandemic as one of the wicked problems. So a wicked problem is that problem which spans across different spheres, like politics, economics, medicine, culture, ethics, and such problems tend not to have one particular solution. So probably by lifting curfew or by putting curfews in place could not be the only ultimate solutions to the virus that has been in existence over the period.
I remember people questioning whether COVID was worst from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. and so forth. But even as, and those are sort of on social media, do you think the curfew achieved its purpose as a medical expert? Would you say that?
When you look at the containment, whatever which brought the curfew to be put in place was the movements that were happening at night hours, the gathering that was taking place. And this was all over the world, whereby you realize that at night, mostly in the clubs or in the joints, in the restaurants, the gatherings, when people do not really observe the Ministry of Health containment measures that were put in place. And ideally, if you look at the countries that were having these restrictions, it was almost every part of the world because it prevents the person-to-person transmissions who are near to each other. So it actually achieved its purpose because when you look at even the data from the inception of COVID, from the start of the COVID outbreak in March last year, the first measures that were taken, the stringent measures, that is the movements, reduced movements, the reduced the curfews, it actually made the reductions in terms of the numbers that were being infected daily. So the curfews and the different containment measures that were put in place by the Ministry of Health have actually helped to curb the spread. Otherwise, I think the impact will have been different with what we had seen over the period. And these measures are actually universal, rather standard for any outbreak which is infectious.
Doc, let me ask you one last question, and I have guests here in studio who might have questions for you, not that you represent the Ministry of Health, but as a medical expert. Is there a danger, and I'm sure they're curious to hear this from you specifically, is there a danger that some of those restrictions might be brought back at a later date?
What happens is that like coronavirus is just like all other viruses, which tends to mutate at any given time. And when you look at the pattern in which coronavirus came in, we had the alpha variant, which was the first one to be discovered. Then you had the beta virus. Then we had the one which you say was more virulent in terms of highly transmissible because it could be passed from one person to the other very fast, and also had more severity. So this is what we had from June to this period, to around this, which are still having actually. So in case we do not have the containment measures, and then there's high likelihood of mutation, then we could end up having the fifth wave. This can only not take place if all of us take responsibility to ensure that we curb or we combat the virus. And this can happen if we take the measures of the Ministry of Health. That is, we all do the hand washing continuously, we all continue observing social distance, we all continue using masks, we all get vaccinated. Because with that, then you cannot get a new variant of the virus, which will then probably result into another wave if it is not well controlled. Because if you look at the times that our country reopened, that is on 20th of this month, it's also Spain opened on 19th. But at the time Spain was opening, it had 79% of its population fully vaccinated. The same time, on 20th, we have India was reopening. Earlier on, we saw also in Spain, almost many countries open at the same time. And when each of them were reopening, even UK, they have a bigger percentage of the population, over 70%, are being vaccinated. The same time that we reopened as a country, we have 4.4% of our adult population fully vaccinated. So it then means that if we do not really gear up in vaccinations and in having all these containment measures, then it's possible to have another wave.
Okay, I don't know if how my guests have received that. Marion, let me start with you. Any concerns as you reflect on what the future could look like for your space?
The truth of the matter is, I agree with him to some extent. If the vaccination rates do not increase, we are likely to get back to another wave, which means more curfew and more restrictions. But I must say that there was a difference between the first and the second lockdown. You see, by the end of 2020, most of us had thought, life is now back to normal. And there was a lot of enthusiasm and hope for 2021. And so whatever people did to survive that period of no work, we forgot about it and went back to default and started operating events. By the time we had the second lockdown, we were like, we should have continued what we were doing before. So I think the lesson has been, whatever you did to survive, keep doing it alongside the events that you're doing.
But
so keep diversifying.
And apologies for interrupting you. Is it natural for people to go for events without being able to do what events call for, which is the mingling and the interaction? How long do you think we can keep that up?
No, it's a point.
What have you observed,
At the beginning, people were very observant, and we would, if this was a table, you'd have like maybe 6-8 people, and you'd be like, COVID restrictions, perfect, and people wearing masks, perfect. But at some point,
the pictures we're seeing on social media.
Yeah, totally different. And you see, what's making it worse, and sorry to say, is now when you look at the political rallies, where is the social distancing there?
I knew we were going to get to that.
Where is the social distancing there?
Feel free, go ahead.
There is nothing. So that's like, what are we doing, So with time, you can see that when it comes to dancing, people used to be told during weddings and during the receptions, dance at your tables. Now, that has Slightly changed. So, I don't know. I don't think we can continue for so long at this level.
But tell me this before Michael comes in. We did see the trend of some people choosing to hold their events in other parts of East Africa where the restrictions were not as strict. What was happening in regards to that?
Yeah, well, let's talk about Tanzania. They continued. Life was as usual. So we found some people who, especially in the entertainment space, going over, let's say, going to Dar es Salaam and stuff like that, and they continued working, and life for them was normal. So I remember even having one of the most famous violinists there for 6-8 months. So when I was hosting an event
went to Tanzania for 8 months.
Yes.
To work there.
Yes, and made quite a bit. And so what he did, ordinarily he'd have to depend on a sound company. But what he went to do, he decided, let me buy a portable PA system, like just one thing that you carry with your violin and you move. You can go up the mountain, down the mountain, up the hill or whatever. So what happened is when I called him back for an event that we were having in September at a certain institution, he didn't know anything about wearing masks. So I had to keep telling him, wear your mask. It's like, but there's nothing happening. I mean, okay.
Where he had come from,
yes.
Nobody was.
So he literally was here for a few months and went back. And
Is he still there today?
No. Now at least now he can rotate and go. There's work, so he's moving.
Michael, how did people survive in your sector? She's told us people went into farming and so forth. In your sector, all the jobs that were there previously, what did people end up doing to survive for those who were working in those thousands of institutions that shut down?
Funny enough, the day before yesterday I was in an Uber, and the driver of the Uber told me that he left his job. He was a front of house guy at Intercon. So people have just been, it's the Kenyan way. You do anything to survive. So they've just been looking for any outlet you can do. And as usual, every Kenyan has a side hustle. So now that side hustle became their new job. Because I think as a people, we're very resilient. And again, I'll just come to the thing of hope, but I'll just say one quick thing. We look around the world and the restaurants and pubs everywhere. They had a stratified opening. And they had, let's say, this thing with the vaccination. If you're vaccinated, sometime last year, I saw a full concert, 58,000 people in New Zealand. Nobody with a mask, no one with everything, because of the vaccinations. So even though the doctor is talking about other closures coming or something like that, I think we should actually now look at it seriously. These people are vaccinated. We allow these things to continue. Let us not come to the situation where the country is closed again.
At all, and that is your plea this evening. This morning rather, what would full recovery look like for your sector? And how long do you think that will take if nothing changes, if things remain constant? Because everything is circular, we have about roughly 10 to 15,000 places that will never open again. Let's just be honest, across the country. Very hard to, there are people who moved on from this business completely. There are some who just, because they've been auctioned, everything has happened, they've just moved on. They've seen this. There are new entrants, hopefully, we will get, I'm sure we'll have a few new members coming in, new entrants into the business, because there's this fallacy, that's where there's a lot of money to be made. But a full recovery, 2 years maybe, if we're lucky. 2 years if we're lucky.
Because we have to think about the cycle where we are right now. We might have a good year now, all these handouts politicians are giving, most people, easy come, easy go, might use it in the hospitality industry. I'll have a beer here, I'll drink here, I'll do what. But August 23rd in the morning, when the politicians have closed the hotels that are their pockets, I think we're going to have a very tough year.
Oh, so you see good times possibly between now and September, but after that?
No, and now in August 23rd.
You even have a specific date
from the politicians. After that, I think people are going to have a very rude awakening.
Abdulaziz, there was a time when it was felt that there were too many taxi hailing operators in the country. Do you think I'd had numbers at Nairobi, there were 8,000? Was there something like that?
Roughly.
With our existing road network?
Yes.
Do you think there are those who've completely left now, never to work again?
Of course. Most of them were auctioned. Some just left the business. And the ones that were auctioned had no other options. So that's why we had urban and rural migration. Some even became hawkers. And you know, in Kenya, Kenyans are naturally resilient. If you use a local context, we'll say our resilience has gone to group of schools. We're very, very, very resilient. So we know how to adapt to new situations. And so the numbers have totally dropped. Yeah.
So what does the next few months look like? You know, we're getting into campaign season. Is that something that works for you as it does for Michael? Or it doesn't quite affect your business, and for you, you're looking for new areas of growth?
Of course, the next few months will have an impact on most of our sectors, because it's a campaign period. And if I would use the example used by the Daktari who has joined us from Mombasa, he used examples of other countries, not considering how they opened and closed, not considering that locally here we had closed and imposed curfew at night that would affect businesses, yet during the day we will see a situation whereby politicians holding huge rallies that will have huge and major effect on the spread of the virus. So even opening up, some people on the streets are saying it's influenced by politics. Since it's getting into campaign time, they don't want to open now. They don't want to open later to look it like they're opening for campaigns.
That's the word on the street out there.
Yes.
Do you believe it?
Why not? What other choice do I have?
Okay, well, that's his personal view this morning. And what's your view? Curfew. How has it impacted you? And thanks for the message that we're getting. And thanks for our guests who are also joining us virtually in Mombasa.